Hi, I'm Betty. Welcome to my kitchen. We're having some friends in for dinner tonight, and I've just finished making some little apple crumbles for dessert. Here it is, all finished, ready for a garnish of just a little scoop of ice cream. Everybody seems to be watching their weight these days, but you know what? If you make dessert really tiny, you can still enjoy it and not feel too guilty. So here's how to do it. So the ingredients for our apple crumble are 2 1/4 cups of flour, about 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. In this case, I'm using demerara sugar, which is an unrefined sugar, and you can see it's not as fine as your regular granulated sugar. You can substitute light or dark brown sugar if you prefer. I have 7 ounces of butter, which I've cubed and have just about at room temperature. I have about a cup of little Ameretti or Amerettini, which I'm going to crush, and that's what adds a nice extra crunch and a little bit of extra flavor to the crumble. For the apples themselves, I'm using 1.5 pounds, about 4 good size apples. In this case, I'm using Gala apples. So I've got about 1/4 cup of sugar. Again, I'm using demerara, a tablespoon of flour, and a teaspoon of cinnamon that we're going to mix in with our apples. So the first thing we're going to do is make the crumble. I'll just move these out of the way for the moment. I'm going to crush my Amerettini. All I'm going to do is give it a good smack with my rolling pin. Just about like so. I don't want them too fine. I want that little extra crunch in my finished crumble. So we'll just set those aside, and I'll give my flour and sugar a whisk to combine that. And I'm going to start adding my butter, a few cubes at a time. It's been sitting out. It's not quite at room temperature, but it is somewhat softened. And I'm going to use this old-fashioned technique of just rubbing it in, like so. You certainly could use cold butter and do this in the processor until it gets crumbed. But you know, on a winter's day, there's something very satisfying about doing jobs like this in a very old-fashioned way by hand. And you're just going to keep adding these cubes and rubbing them in until the mixture forms crumbs. It'll take a little while, but honestly, it's a pleasant job. All right, I finished blending the flour and sugar mixture, and you can see it's a nice texture. These nice little clumps of crumbs, no big lumps of butter. And what I'm going to do now is add my secret ingredient, these lovely Amerettini. I'm just going to toss those in with a fork. It's absolutely not necessary to do this at all. In fact, I'm thinking if you can't get these, another nice addition might be some crushed ginger snaps. Ginger and apple go very well together too. So there we are. That's the crumb mixture. We're going to get all these apples peeled first, and then I'll cut them in half and core them and chop them. Now normally I bake this in a large 1.5, 2 quart pie sort of dish. But I've recently acquired some small dishes, and I'm going to cut the apples a little smaller than usual because I want to bake them in these little individual dishes, and you'll see those in just a few minutes. So I'm just going to cut these apples in half, and with this handy corer, take this out. If you don't have a corer, you can certainly use a teaspoon to accomplish the same thing. This is Actually, this is a melon baller. I take it back. It's not a quart, it's a melon baller. Very handy gadget. Just finish these up. Again, I'm using Gala apples, but you can use any apple of your choice. And I'm using about a 1/4 cup of sugar for these because they're a fairly sweet apple. If you're using something less sweet, such as a Granny Smith, you might want to increase the sugar. Okay, and now, and again, I'm just going to finish cleaning these up. All right, my apples are all ready now to be diced. I'm just going to go across one way and then the other. And I've got a bowl all ready to dump these into. Just get that one to chop. As I said, because I'm planning on using small individual bowls, I am dicing these a little smaller than I would if I were making one big dish. And just continue until they're all done. So here's my bowl full of diced apples, and I've got my sugar, flour, and cinnamon. I'm going to give these a stir before I mix those into the apples. Oh, that cinnamon smells so good. So just dump that, and with my hands, give this a good toss. And get those apples split up there and coated. So now I'm ready to start putting these in my little dishes, which incidentally I have coated with butter. Now the nice thing about having an individual one like this, if you make a big one, people can just really take as much as they like. If you make individual ones, you're limiting the portion, limiting the calories, and so it's not quite so much of a temptation. My 1.5 pounds of apples has given me a dozen of these little 1/2 cup baking dishes. So now I'm ready to add the crumble. I'll just take a spoon, and you want to be fairly generous with this, just like so. And there, that's the last little pot done. Now, you can see I do have some crumble left over. And trust me, it won't go to waste. I'll put this in a plastic bag, throw it in the freezer, and the next time I want to make dessert for, maybe 4 people, I'll have my crumble all ready. My oven is preheated at 350 degrees. And I'm going to pop these in for about 35 to 40 minutes, just until I see them bubbling. Set the timer. My crumbles have cooked for a full 40 minutes. And I tested the apples, and they're soft, and these are done and ready to cool a little before serving. I'm going to put these on top of the stove to cool. Why bother taking out a cooling rack when your gas top rings will do just as well? So I'm going to let these cool. You can serve them warm or at room temperature. I suppose you could even serve them cold if you like, but on a cold night, I think warm is best. I'm going to dress them up with a little scoop of ice cream, and they'll be all ready to enjoy. Apple crumble. I think you'll like it.